the expectation part of this season going in, and then as the season went along, moving forward. Is it safe to assume that you do feel like this team did meet expectations and maybe even at times exceed expectations?
Well, Gord, first of all the people, you're the one I missed the most, but don't tell that to anyone else, okay? Expectations. I think we had to be realistic with our expectations. I don't think we were going to be a playoff team this year. I think with the start that we had, we had a long uphill climb to build, a long uphill battle to have. But at the same time, I think we exceeded expectations for the simple point of view that this year was about a few things. It was moving the rebuild along to a place that we'd be very comfortable with. Was the development of our younger players to take an integral role into our team, which we seem to do, and to us to take a big step. If you look at it, and again, it's you got to be careful when you compare, but of the 7 teams that did not participate in the play-in or the playoffs last year, we were the best team. And it was going to be, we knew that these 7 teams would have a hard time, because you didn't play for such a long time. And I think most of the 7 teams had a more difficult start. But that's just part of the game. But we just feel that we definitely met and exceeded expectations, and we're really looking forward to next year.
Was there any point in the season, and let's take the 15-game mark, was there any point where you thought this is not going nearly as planned, and was there any doubt about the plan moving forward?
Well, obviously, there were times, I can tell you when we played those 3 games in Vancouver early in the year that, I think you always got to self-evaluate yourself, self-evaluate the group, self-evaluate everyone within the hockey organization are we on the right path here? But I think, there are circumstances there where there was wire losses seemed to be piling up early. And I think our biggest win of the year was when Brady tipped in the goal, 2-1 goal game in Winnipeg, and I felt from then on, there were some ups and downs through there. I think there were 2 games in Calgary that I felt, one at the end of the year here, and one that when we played Montreal, flew to Calgary, that I didn't think we were that I think we could have put a better effort forward. But overall, if you look after the start, I think we were one of the hardest teams to play against. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I apologize.
I think if you poll the 6 other Canadian teams and you ask them who's the hardest team to play against, I think, if you ask Montreal today, they'll tell you Toronto because they're playing against the playoffs. And if you ask Winnipeg, they'll say Edmonton. But after the season, if you poll the 6 Canadian teams and some of their players and some of their executives, I think you'll get a lot of Ottawa as far as replies, I know they've told me off the record, some executives are not, on the record to me, but not on the record publicly, that we were a very hard team to play against, if not the hardest team in our division. And that was one of our goals.
And just one final one for me. If there is one thing that you're most impressed with, or one thing that has surprised you the most about this season and how it ended, do you know what it might be?
That's a good question, Gord. I probably would have to tell you how we bounced back from such a tough start. I think and at the same time, the growth of our young players was because we had such a tough start, and how we bounced back after such a difficult start would probably be the one thing. And I probably would have to, if you want to single out a player, I would probably have to tell you how the impact that Artem Zub had in our lineup. On that note, Gord, I will announce that we've just signed Artem Zub to a 2-year contract, 2.5 AAV, 1.75 in the first year, 3.25 in the second year.
Okay, and if I can follow up on that, then why?
You definitely follow up, Gord.
What was his importance to the hockey club? What did that mean to this team?
I think he brought a stability on our back end. He's someone. At first, we weren't exactly sure what we got. We obviously, our European scouting staff, our pro scouting staff, some of our amateur scouts, Peter, myself, we all went and saw him last year. I think we did a good selling job because there were quite a few teams on him. We didn't know we knew what we thought we had. He had a slow camp. And once he got into the lineup, I think he just brought some stability. I think he's a very good defensive defenseman. I think he's going to be on the Russian Olympic team. I think he's a good penalty killer. He gaps up extremely well. He can play against the other team's top lines. So for us, he was a good addition.
Was it pretty clear that he also made those around him better? And case in point, Eric Brandstrom?
I think he played mostly with Mike Riley and Eric Brandstrom, and I think you have to credit those two guys. I think you can play with whoever you want to, but you still have to perform, and I think those two players performed well with or without him.
Good stuff. Thank you. That's it from me, sir.
We'll go to Bruce Garriock at Post Media.
Hey, Pierre, just got a few things here for you here. Just on, obviously you get Zub signed. You've got some other guys you've got to work on, obviously Kachuk, Batherson. What will your approach be on those guys?
We got three, more than three. We got quite a few pending RFAs. We know the importance of Brady and Drake to our team. We haven't really done anything right now. But at some point in time, we will start discussions with both camps. We felt it was better with a shortened season and so much pressure, I think, on Canadian teams. We felt that just letting him play this year was probably the right path to go down. And, we get contracts done. We'll get contracts done here. And I think both players are very excited to be here. They're both an integral part of our lineup, as long with other RFAs and Victor Mete, Philip Gustafsson. So we know we got some other guys that we have to sign.
Just on what did you see in Tim Stutzle's game this season, Pierre?
Well, we saw someone who's a dynamic offensive hockey player. We saw someone with great speed. We saw someone that has high-end skill. His hockey IQ is unbelievable. We saw someone that could play in harder games and difficult games. We saw someone that, I think at one point in time will be an elite NHL defenseman, a superstar, and elite NHL winger, pardon. I think someone will be a superstar. We know he hit a bit the wall here in the last month, but he never stopped working. What we like a lot about him is he's on top of being a top talent, he's got a lot of character and he's really driven to be the best player he can be, and that really bodes well for our organization and our fans.
What progression, what sort of progress did you see in your young players?
All of them. And I think a lot of credit goes to DJ and how we handled them. Pretty much every young player in our lineup this year proved. And even some of the guys that are just starting, whether it's their third year or fourth year, we saw some improvement in them. We saw some improvement in Thomas Shabbatsky. We saw improvement in how he boxes out, how he's becoming a complete defenseman. But at the same time, in the younger players, whether it's Josh Norris, we saw someone that, was faced with a tough task through the season going up against elite centermen in the NHL, and who played against them, competed against them, really took a huge step from, we knew he had something special, but to say that to become a frontline center at such a young age, I think it bodes well for him. Drake Batherson showed that he's an unbelievable talent. Brady Cachuckle, I think everyone knows what Brady does for a team. He brings our team into the battle every night. You look at Brandstrom, how he played once he got back in the lineup. And the plan was with him to, unfortunately what happened at the start of the year was exposed with someone who had COVID, so we had to quarantine, so we couldn't bring him on the trip. But from that part on, he was pretty much with our team, and we wanted him to practice because that's one part of his game that he needed to improve so he could play better. So most of these younger guys, if I'm forgetting someone, please pardon me, but we saw a lot of growth in a lot of our younger players this year.
I just had two more things. I mean,
go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, you look at your off season. What areas would you like to address?
Well, obviously, we're definitely trending upwards as a team. We saw that in how we played in the last part. I think before the Calgary game, we were 8-1-1 in the last 10 games of every team in the NHL. We were number one, and we're definitely trending upwards. So when it comes to adding pieces, we're not really going to tell everyone what we're looking to add, but we know we need to improve upon certain areas of our team. And at the same time, we got to make sure that whether it's through a young kid or a veteran, that whomever we bring in fits in with the culture of this team, because that's one of the things that we've really wanted to improve through this rebuild.
And do you feel like, and I do have one more after this.
No, that's all right. I got all the time today.
No, but do you feel like you can compete for a playoff spot next year, given the way you're trending?
Well, obviously, at the end of the day, playoffs are important. Winning a Stanley Cup is, and I respect everyone that's ever won a Stanley Cup. That's our ultimate goal. I think we're going to take it step by step. But I really am proud. And when we met as a group yesterday, and it was a very short meeting because, we still had to abide by the protocols. I really made sure to tell the guys that how proud I was of how hard we practiced through the year and how hard we played till end last game of the year. Now, we played, I think, 55 of our 56 games were games that meant something for those teams to get into the playoffs. Last game against the Leafs was a game that they were going for the President's Trophy, I believe, at that point in time. So I still put some significance in it, but the team that had not clinched, but every other team was fighting for a playoff spot or in the playoffs or fighting for seeding. And that's experience that is so valuable to our young group this year. But I think we have expectations. I spoke to our expectations to the players, both DJ and I did yesterday. It's not about making all these expectations public, but I think people know where we have to go as far as the team moving forward.
And one last thing, I had asked DJ about this yesterday, but just the subject of a captain next season.
Well, I think when it comes to captain, and I'm going to take a bit of my time to answer this because I really want our fans to understand the importance of naming a captain. Three people have a say in this. Obviously, our owner, Mr. Melnick, has a say in it, DJ and myself. And people are going to say, why does Mr. Melnick have a say in it? Well, we're a hockey team in Canada, and it's important that the captain reflects the values of the organization, of the ownership, of the general manager, of the coach, of the organization. And at some point in time, we've had, I think our leadership group has moved along well. At some point in time, whether it's early next season through the season next year, we will name a captain.
We'll go to Kyle Bukauskas at Sportsnet.
Hey, Pierre. You've mentioned a lot this morning about the growth of your young players, and rightfully so. So I'm just curious, you spoke about it a little bit, but just in going through what you've learned and saw throughout this year, how do you best go about surrounding them, I guess, with the right complementary pieces to continue to move towards a team that will one day contend for a playoff spot?
Well, obviously, Kyle, it's a good question. When we made the decision to go through the rebuild, it wasn't an easy one. And Kyle, the one thing is that I made sure that I went through every team that has gone through a rebuild in the last 10, 15 years or so. I looked at what they did. We looked at what they did. And the one thing that we felt was really important is you couldn't have too many young players. You needed your young players, especially if you're going to grow with a young core, to be surrounded by quality character veterans. Last year, we brought in character veterans, whether it was going to be for the short term or medium term. The important thing was not to bring probably the most talented players in, but it was to bring the right character veterans. So guys that like hockey, guys that worked hard in practice, guys that could deflect a bit from a younger team, because everyone knows that probably we weren't going to be a playoff team. And we felt we accomplished that. And moving forward, it'll be more about adding, I think, quality pieces, but at the same time still maintaining that character presence. You look at sometimes at some unsuccessful rebuilds, and I'm not going to talk about them in specifics, but I think, or we felt that the one thing that I was always lacking was there wasn't enough character presence in the room. And we know bringing some of those guys that we brought in last year really helped us to grow to have long-term success.
Ian Mendez, The Athletic.
Hey, Pierre. I got a few for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's good. I'll start with this. You're headed into the last year of your contract. I'm just wondering.
Oh, Ian, you kind of. Can you repeat the question, please, Ian? I heard the last part was contract.
Yeah, just wondering, you're headed into the last year of your contract. Has there been any talk of being extended, and what's your mindset around that?
No, there hasn't been any talk about being extended. Last time I did my contract, Eugene and Sheldon contacted my lawyer in Toronto, Arthur Yellen. So they know where he is. As far as, you know what, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this for the long term. You know, we've had we knew through the first few years the rebuild it'd be more difficult, but we're definitely on the right path, and I want to be here for the long term. But the one thing that I never worry about my contract. If it goes to June 30th and we sign something on June 30th, I'm more than okay with it. Just to have a chance and to be part of this organization is an honor, and I look forward to being at the helm for many years to come, if that opportunity comes.
How does moving to potentially back to the Atlantic Division impact your playoff chances for next year?
I like it, Ian. I think, and I think we think here, and I know DJ and myself, we've had many discussions about it, and I do like the question. I think it's a very valid question. I think you asked if your fans on the poll. I didn't see the results. But in this division this year, Ian, you were competing with 6 teams that were spending for the cap. 6 teams that were had to make the playoffs. In the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference, we have a lot of teams that are in similar position to us or are moving along to where we are. And not to disrespect any of those teams, but they're rebuilding, they're retooling, and I think it gives us a better competitive advantage of playing in the normal Atlantic Division next year compared to playing again in the Canadian Division.
And then maybe along those lines, as you look at your cap number for next year, do you anticipate being a low cap team, mid cap team, or closer to the $81 million threshold?
Well, I don't think we're there yet, even as far as being at the $81 million threshold. For us, it's not about being where we need to be at the cap. I think for us, it's about making sure we make the right moves, sign the right players. At the same time, when you're talking about cap, we have to be really, I think, fiscally responsible, cap responsible, more importantly, moving forward, because we're going to have all these young stars that we're going to have to sign. The Brady Cachucks, the Josh Norris, the Drake Bathersons. Norris is in a year. The Eric Brandstrom in a year. We got some other guys, Tim Stutzle in 2 years. Shane Pinto in two years. Jake Sanderson probably in quite a few years. So we have to be really smart how we spend our cap dollars. And I think that will come eventually, but I don't think we're there right now. But once we sign all these future stars, then we'll be obviously closer to the cap ceiling.
And just to clarify what you had said earlier about, last year you had brought in some veteran players. Is it fair to say then this offseason your philosophy has changed in terms of pursuing how you would pursue free agents?
No, and Ian, I want to be clear, and you know what, I don't mind going through transaction, maybe not today, to explain what we did. But last year, our biggest need, because, I think for us to make the playoffs this upcoming year, we would have needed something spectacular, to happen. So we knew where we were along a rebuild. And the most important thing was, it wasn't about, I'm not going to say they weren't quality NHL players, was to bring into that room the leadership so guys could see how it was done, guys that like hockey, guys that would play hard, guys that would practice hard. Everyone we targeted or everyone we brought in, we knew on a scale of 10 as far as character, they were 9 or 9.5 in our judgment. And I think this year, when we move forward, with possible additions, it will be, again, along the lines of the high character, but maybe a different type of player.
And I got I promise, two more
that's
questions.
Go ahead, Ian.
two more questions for you. Where's your expansion draft protected list at? Have you figured that out yet, or is that still a work in progress?
No, we're still a work in progress. Obviously, we've known for the last few years that Seattle was going to be in the league. We knew that we were going to lose a player. The way we went about it last time, obviously, I had some talks with George about possible trades, but we just felt, why lose 2 or 3 assets when you're going to lose one? I'm not saying that's exactly what we're going to do, but that's the way we're thinking about it, and that's the way you look at what other teams did, and we had no interest in doing that. And it could be different. I've talked to Ron Francis a few times. He's a guy that I have tremendous respect for. But at the same time, I told him they paid $550 million, and he corrected me. He said we paid $650 million, and I said, well, you're going to get a good player from us, whomever that might be. But unless we have to listen to whatever trade possibility they could propose to us. But at the same time, we like the path that we went down the last time. And why lose 2 or 3 assets when you can only lose one?
And my last question would be about the entry draft coming up. And again, your spot is still kind of up in the air, but just can you walk us through the difficulty of assessing players in an atypical season? And philosophically, do you guys draft the best player available, or do you draft for positional needs within the organization?
No, we've always drafted the best player available. There was one year, I think the year we took Mika Zibanejad. At that point in time, Brian didn't tell me, but asked me if we could take the best forward possible, and we felt at that point in time Mika was that. But for the most part, I've not given any direction to Trent. Always draft the best player available. We have a lot of depth at goaltending right now. If you look at how Sogard's played coming into the Belleville, Marilainen was the best goalie in the Finnish under-20 league. I think the way the Cord, Gustafson have played, Manley's had some ups and downs in the minors, but it's his first year and it's a difficult year, when you're not playing that much. I think on defense, I think both right shot and left shot, I think we feel really comfortable. I think when you got a player the caliber of Jake Sanderson, most likely come in at the end of next year. And then you've got JBD and Lassie Thompson, who I was so impressed with on Tuesday night. I think brought DJ to the game with me, and if we wouldn't have had 4 call-ups, or we hadn't committed to 4 call-ups and Parker Kelly and Logan Brown, I think Lassie would have played. I think how he's played in the last 3 weeks really shows that I think both JBD and Thompson will be, I think, top 4 defensemen when they mature on the right-hand side. And up front, well, everyone's seen our depth, the young guys that we have. We forget that Tim Stutzle's 19 years old. Brady's 21. Down the middle, we all saw what Shane Pinto was able to do. On the right side, Yarventi just played his first game. We got Ridley Gregg that I think finished, and if I'm wrong on the number here, 4th or 5th in WHL scoring as a 19-year-old, and he can go back. So we got a lot of depth at every position. So just adding overall depth or the best player available is probably the path we're going to go down.
Ken Warren, Post Media.
Good morning, Pierre.
Don't sound too excited, Ken.
I'm always excited, Pierre, talking to you. Hey, you alluded to it just there a little bit about the goaltending, and I mean, disagree with me here. It's got to be the number one most important position in the game. Where's your analysis of where your goaltending is now? You talked about the depth at the end of the year, and that what happened at the start. Where do you think you are right now with the goaltending position?
We've got a lot. I feel we have quality and quantity at the goaltending depth position. I think we start from top to bottom. You look at Matt Murray, he'll even admit to you that he didn't have the start of the season that he wanted to. After we made the goaltending change, I think we saw the goalie that we traded for and signed. Anton Forsberg came in here and I think did a great job under difficult circumstances. You ask a person to go through 3 different quarantines in a whole year. He came in here, gave us some solid play nets. Yesterday, we let Marcus know that most likely he will not be back next year, Marcus Hogberg. And we thank him, and he was a hardworking guy, great guy, but at this point in time, we feel we have some better options. You look at the 2 younger guys, well, Joey's not that young. Joey DeCourt came in, played well, when he was asked upon in difficult circumstances, with Matt going down there right before a game. Philip Gustafson probably provided us some of the best goaltending of any of our goalies that played this year for the Ottawa Senators. And from day one, when he got in the net in Belleville this year, you could ask Troy, and he was probably his best goalie. Then we got Kevin Mandelays, who was, the Quebec goalie, won the goalie of the year for the Quebec League last year. He's had an up and down games. He's had some games where he's been unbelievable, and he's had some games where he's got to be better. And then you look at the two guys that played overseas this year. Marilainen was the best goalie in the Finnish under-20 league. I think he's a strong candidate to be starting goalie for the Finnish junior team next year. And Matt Solgaard has come into Belleville, and I think out of the 4 games, 3 of them, he's been our best player. So I think we have quality and quantity in probably the most important position by your analysis. Yeah.
Just to follow up with Matt Murray, and I mean, like you said, I mean, not the year obviously he wanted or you guys wanted. What do you leave that completely alone? He's got to figure this out on his own in the summer and come back differently, and any of that play out because of not playing until December, having that long layoff, do you think, and what happened?
I'm not big on excuses, Ken. No. We have to help him figure it out. He's got to figure it out. I think we saw someone of elite caliber, I think, once the goalie changed, and there's nothing on Pierre Group, please. Like, Pierre Group's one of the best goalie coaches I've ever worked with in the NHL. I think sometimes certain goalies work, like Pierre Group did a great job with Anders Nielsen, Craig Anderson, Hogberg the previous year. All his time in Ottawa, he did an unbelievable job. But it wasn't working with Matt Murray. And DJ and I felt that it was the right decision to make. And ever since Zach came in, I think we've seen someone that we can say, okay, this is the guy that won 2 cups. This is the guy, DJ didn't have a shutout until Matt got the 2 in his 2 years in Ottawa. So I think we saw someone here that we can say, okay, this is the guy that won 2 cups. This is the guy that can be our leader in the back end. And, we have to make sure that we give him every tool possible for him to succeed. But at the same time, he's got to make sure that he comes in here and not have the start that he had this past season.
Wayne Scanlon, Sportsnet.
Hello.
Hi, Pierre. You've covered a lot of ground by now, but just a couple of quick ones. You have so many prospects in the system, and you named many of them this morning. At some point, they can't all play for this organization. Are you close to the point where you might consider packaging some prospects to get a piece or two that's going to help a developing team or a contending team?
Again, that's a great question, Wayne. For us, we do have a lot of prospects. We do have, I feel we have quality and quantity at most positions. At some point in time, when we feel that we're a team that we're ready to win, we might have to package, whether it's a pick, a prospect, to look at making that next step. I'll always remember an interview, and sorry if I'm turning to baseball, I'll always remember watching the interview with David Dabrowski. And I don't know if he was with the Tigers at the time or the Red Sox. He said, prospects are great, prospects are nice, but they're not all going to play. And at some point in time, you have to move some of them to hit the next step. And I don't know David Dabrowski at all, but I respected that quote, and something that's always stuck with me. And at some point in time, we might need to do something like that. I don't think we're there yet, but I think in the next few years, that might be something that we'll look at.
And specifically concerning the summer, would you consider finding someone for Thomas Chabot, a partner, or do you think you already have that, whether it's JBD or Zaitsev?
I think we got on our right side. I feel comfortable. I think Zaitsev is an elite defender. He's someone that has the utmost respect in that room. Any one of you guys that watch us practice and pay attention, and I do say the part pay attention, you would notice that he practices the hardest. He blocks shots. He goes up against some of the, he's one guy that skates so well that he can defend top players in our league. So he's an option, obviously. I think the thing with Thomas Chabot, finding him part, it's right now we're putting him against the most difficult matchups. And, Thomas is not noted for his defensive game, though it's improved a lot. And sometimes that's a reflection, we think he needs a better partner. I think once Jake Sanderson arrives here, I think those minutes of being the toughest matchup once he reaches his prime will be probably his minutes. And we won't be talking about finding a partner for Thomas Chabot, but at the same time, whether it's Zaitsev, Zub, Lassie Thompson, who I think has made, as I said before, made tremendous strides. As I told you guys before early on this call, DJ, I think, would have put him in the game, our last game of the year, how impressed he was with him on Tuesday, and JBD, who, obviously, I love the fact that Thomas and Thomas's girlfriend Marion brought him into their house when they were here, so they could develop some kind of chemistry, friendship. So I think we got enough options that we don't need to go and look out for a partner for Thomas Chabot. But if one comes up and we feel it's an upgrade and it helps us and it's part of the plan, we'll definitely look at it.
Mike Moriali, NHL.com.
Mike?
Good morning, Pierre. You've already given us a lot of time, so thanks for that. Just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple things regarding the draft. Now, how are you and your scouting staff, how do you intend to navigate this draft, Pierre, with so much uncertainty? Is there a specific plan in place? And can you envision, when you look back on this draft 6 years from now, that maybe we might have some star players taken in the later rounds because of the uncertainty?
There's no doubt, Mike. But all the teams are on same footing. The 32 teams that are going to pick this year have all had the same issues. And unfortunately, I personally feel we're at a disadvantage because I feel we have one of the best amateur scouting staffs left by Trent Mann. And the work shows that we have one of the best scouting staffs. And I think it puts us at a disadvantage, but all 32 teams are along the way. Obviously, last year, myself, I was able to see a lot of the players we took personally. This year, I won't have that opportunity, but I know our staff has worked really hard. They've seen most of the guys, except for some of the OHL guys that won't be seen. They've seen every other player play. And, our sample size is smaller, but we still have to do the job. And it's not an excuse not for us to draft well. I'm sure we'll do as well as we've done in the past, but that's why having an inkling that this could happen, that's why we moved some picks from this year and moved them to the 2022 draft.
And just as a follow, has the scouting team kind of pinpointed an area of strength in this draft, Pierre? It looks like it might be a good one along the blue line, but I don't know. Have you heard anything?
I've heard a lot of things, Mike. Not going to divulge too much of them, but I've got to tell you that it's probably not the deepest draft that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, but there's some good players. There's going to be some really good NHL players that come. I think with some drafts, you have to be patient how the players are going to develop and impact the NHL. And I think in this upcoming 2021 draft, contrary where you can feel you have good gauge on the draft, whether it's 2-3 years down the road, this will be more of a draft. You got to look 5 or 6 years down the road where the players are. And there'll be some late round surprises. And it's not by the lack of work ethic from every other team scout. Sometimes it'll just be contrary to the years, and this will be just plain luck this year.
The final one this morning is going to be from Marc Broussard at Le Doigt.
Oui, salut Pierre. Je ne vais pas te faire répéter tout ce que tu as dit en anglais. Tu as couvert bien du terrain. Juste curieux de savoir c'est quoi tes priorités d'abord pour cet été.
Nos priorités, Marc, and I'll finish with just a last point in English after I'm done with Marc. Nos priorités pour cet été, c'est évidemment, on a plusieurs joueurs à mettre sur ponton. C'est l'importance de Brady et de Drake à notre alignement. Continuer l'amélioration. On est sur la bonne voie quand ça vient. On est sur la bonne voie quand ça vient à notre construction de l'équipe. On continue sur cette élancée-là. Que l'équipe continue à s'améliorer. On est vraiment fiers de la direction que l'équipe a été dedans, surtout en deuxième moitié de l'année. Je pense dans le dernier quart de l'année, on est 10-3-1 contre des matchs qui avaient toute une significance. Donc, on est vraiment content de notre saison et du développement de nos jeunes joueurs. l'addition de certains vétérans qui ont pu aider quand ça vient au leadership du groupe. Donc, on a vraiment hâte que nos partisans puissent venir nous voir jouer, on espère, dès le mois de septembre et octobre.
Est-ce que tu as certains regrets par rapport au début de saison? Il y avait des vétérans qui peut-être bloquaient le chemin de certains jeunes.
Non, je ne regarde pas ça comme ça, de bloquer le chemin des jeunes. Moi, je regarde que les jeunes devaient avoir... ils devraient intégrer l'alignement sur le mérite, et on ne voulait pas tout leur donner. Et puis, chaque vétéran qu'on a amené, c'était pas la chose qu'on ne voulait pas faire, c'est amener des vétérans qui n'ont pas de caractère. Chaque vétéran qu'on a amené beaucoup de caractère, beaucoup de leadership, et c'était important dans chaque reconstruction d'équipe qu'on a pu étudier dans les 10 dernières années ou des 15 dernières années, que la chose importante à certains points de cette reconstruction, c'était d'avoir, c'était à ce point-ci de notre reconstruction, d'avoir les meilleurs vétérans à point de vue caractère possible.
Tu as parlé de ton contrat à toi, mais DJ Smith aussi commence à donner un contrat. C'est souvent pas une situation idéale pour un entraîneur de temps dernière année de contrat. Est-ce que tu penses qu'il y a besoin d'un vote de confiance de ce côté-là?
J'ai donné beaucoup de votes de confiance à DJ au cours de l'année. Je vais en donner un autre. DJ a fait un travail incroyable cette année lorsque ça vient le développement de nos jeunes, de la manière qu'on a fonctionné, de la manière qu'on a grandi comme équipe. Donc, que ce soit dans son cas ou mon cas, je pense pas ni un ni l'autre, on est inquiets.
Une dernière petite question, peut-être un peu. T'es devenu viral toi-même, Mané, avec un lancer de bouteille dans ta loge. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose que tu regrettes?
Je pense qu'on n'a pas besoin de discuter ça. Tout le monde qui me connaît sait comment que je suis compétitif et que j'aime gagner. Je m'étais excusé auprès des Taggart. J'ai ramassé et essuyé l'eau tout de suite après. Et comme mon esprit compétitif a eu le meilleur de moi, je m'excuse si c'est quelque chose qui a mis nos partisans ou l'organisation à une mauvaise place.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up there this morning. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, I'd just like to say a few things. Again, thanks all of you for covering the team this year and how you went about it. I just want to emphasize the important things for us this year as a group is that we knew the importance of the growth of the kids and our young players, and that happened. It happened at a really good rate. We've got a great core of young players here. I think our work ethic was impeccable. How we played was the right way we need to play to win, and we saw that at the end of the year. I think for the last 2 years, probably there's only a handful of games through each year that we felt we didn't give our best effort, and that sets a great foundation for us moving forward. I think the biggest thing is, obviously, we all know about a terrible start of our season, but I think through adversity, you build a lot of character, and that room built a lot of character, and now they can police themselves. And, we're not absolving from our start this year, but at the same time, we feel that we really grew as a team, and we can't wait for our fans to come back in our building and see us play, because I think everyone will be extremely happy with the product that we're going to put on the ice.